Yo, yo, yo. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal here is to bring you great information every single time to help you improve your practice and your life. Are you struggling with how to implement new ideas in your practice and share them? Well, today I bring on an amazing coach. Her name is Courtney Dalton, and we put together a framework on how you can turn those sighs into smiles. 3 steps to implement new ideas in your practice. And if you follow it, I promise you, it works. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. Do you ever struggle with trying to find new ideas and how to implement them and create some progress in your practice? Well, if you've ever asked yourself those questions and you don't have answers, we're going to bring answers today with an amazing coach. Her name is Courtney Dalton, and we're going to be talking about how you can take 3 steps to implement new ideas in your practice safely. So, Courtney, thanks for being back. I always appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you didn't really have a choice because we voluntold you for all of these. Courtney loves coming back for these, but you'll see she's an amazing coach, and we're going to help you today if you're a listener on these topics because we know this is a big deal. This is a big deal even for us. So, Courtney, I want you to share with our listeners the why. Why is this topic so important today?
Well, when you talk about implementing change of any kind to your team, specifically those of us in the dental industry, because we have certain personality types that might be a little bit more resistant to change. There's a way to do it so that it sticks and it gains traction and it gains excitement. And then there's a way to do it if you really want your idea to crash and burn. I like the first way better. I think that's a much better way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, this is going to be a therapy session for me because Courtney knows the story behind, I'm an idea person. So I used to think, if you guys have been following the podcast, I used to think that ideas, everyone's energized by these ideas. So the first half of my career, I would just bring idea after idea after idea to a meeting. Well, the other thing you may or may not know about me is I'm terrible at finishing anything. So I would just blow up the whole room with idea after idea and then just tell my team to figure it out and then leave the room. Well, what it does is slowly people start to lose trust in you. And while they might like you, they don't respect you when you just bring idea after idea to the whole process. So, and you also need, like you mentioned it, we need the buy-in, right? From people. Tell us a little bit more about that.
If your team doesn't feel like they had a hand in the process, if they don't feel like they have a voice or a say, or even just the opportunity to be vulnerable and put their idea in the room, there's less likelihood that they're going to accept that idea, period. So our amazing coach, Jamie, shared with us this theory, and I share it with all of my teams. Alignment doesn't have to equal agreement.
Right.
So meaning we can all align around something, even if it wasn't my idea or your idea, as long as we had the opportunity to put your opinion into the room, put your thoughts into the room. You have to take that ownership as a team member to know that I shared my thoughts, I tried, I gave it my best, and my leaders or leader knows what's best for the practice. I'm going to align with their decision, even if I don't agree with it, even if it wasn't mine. So we have to get our teams buy-in. We have to create an environment where they feel like they can share, because that's what we really want, is to hear their thoughts and their ideas.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so we're gonna share with you a framework here today. But I agree with you, Courtney. Like when Jamie shared that thought, alignment and agreement are not the same things. It was truly life changing, life saving. And then I also learned that consensus is not healthy. So we're going to share with you a framework on how you can do that. Still get people's buy-in, but you don't need everyone to agree and totally go, yeah. So where do I start with this, Courtney? Where do we even begin?
Start with why. Start with why. Why are we doing this? Whatever the idea is, why? How can I contribute to it? How does the idea benefit me as a hygienist or an assistant or an administrator, or how do I get some kind of benefit from this? Tell me why so I can understand where we're going with this. A lot of us in the dental world, I kind of alluded to before, we are heavy in two styles. And I tell all my teams this, that for whatever reason, the majority of your team is going to end up in one slice of that pie disc chart. And it's in the S section. And then we also get a lot of C's, myself included. We're a little bit more resistant to change. To get your S's and your C styles on your team to engage and to buy into your idea, they have to know why, period. They just have to know why. You can't give them an idea and say, okay, go.
Right.
If they don't know where we're going or why or how we're going to get there, give them more, give them why.
Right, because I would agree. A lot of times we start with the how, and we'll let you in on some of the secrets that we use here. Even when a coach goes out to a new practice, one of the exercises we ask of the doctor is why us and why now, just so the team gets a global picture of this, because it's real easy to go into the details of insurance and why we're going to do this and that. And it really does freak a lot of people out. Now, one more piece that is important too, I think, Courtney, is like just calling out the altitude of these things. Like sometimes just staying up here about the why before we get into the how. Because again, I like to go at all different altitudes. I'll start with the why and then go into the how. But what Behrendt called it altitude sickness. So I was making people sick week after week. Like why? Like sometimes it's okay just to stay up here and then slowly let's figure out the how together. So take us through this a little bit more so that we stay in the rails, because I'm going to add a whole lot of thoughts, but it might not be valuable to the conversation.
Well, I mean, essentially, if you don't know why we're doing it, right, and you just jump to the how, a lot of us we do want to know how, even your S's and your C's. We can understand the idea and we do want to know how we get there. But it's the why that has so much more power to it. I know all of our coaches would agree. We can't come in as a coach and start anything until your leaders tell you why we're even here. Why act? Why now? That's my favorite part of an annual planning session with a brand new team, is kind of seeing their leaders be vulnerable. And some get emotional and some really open up to their teams and tell them why. And it's in those moments where you can lower your guard and share, where the team just really gets it. If your team, any members on your team, if they are the right people in the right seats, and you share with them, here's my why. Here's why I want to become less PPO dependent. Here's why I want to change my hours. Here's why we're going to implement a new periodontal protocol. If they get the why, the how is super easy and super clear for them to attach onto.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you picked two of my favorite that you could easily illustrate in this, which is the PPO conversation and the hours. A lot of dentists, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, you're like, okay, PPOs have been doing the analysis. Like, we got to get rid of these and that, and I can't stand this anymore. And so you're a dentist, you're thinking, I'm going to get rid of XYZ PPO in my practice. And so you just become insanely focused on making sure that that happens. Well, your team member who works administratively at the front is like, well, my mom is on that and my sister is on that too. Well, He's just trying to make more money. And what you have to do is go slow enough that everyone can understand this. They can see the data. They can understand the long term of it. And so they can further support it. It also doesn't mean that they can't come here. So you have to go slow enough that everyone can stay with you. Another one that you mentioned is the hours thing. You can't just change your hours to benefit you. Sometimes, I forgot to put this in there. Like when the why becomes clear, the how gets easy. I don't know who said that, but I should, because for me, it's about life. It's about family. It's about kids. It's not about an advantage so I get out of here. So when you put up a picture of your family and you go, look, let me explain why. I want this, but I also want this for you guys. Now the why becomes easier. And so if you're a team member out there and you've ever changed your hours 7 to 3 or 8 to 4 from to those hours that are more desirable from less desirable hours, you realize it's a very easy conversation when you just talk about why and you don't get into the how, and it becomes an energizing thing. One more thing I'll just say about this, because we're going to talk about how to involve the team. This is what your team members want from you. They want to be inspired when it comes to a major change. And so you don't have to be super wordy about it. You just got to be honest and authentic about the why behind it. And you'll be amazed by what Courtney just said. You get the right people. They will figure this out. They'll go, I want that too. Let's work together to figure out the how. Now, the magic question becomes the involvement of the team. Like, you got to help me with that. How do I do this?
So I have to share a story because it so perfectly links the why and how to get your team on board. Perfectly. So we have a team in our community who's been with us for a few years, and they're in Wisconsin and they're amazing. And before I had a few phone calls with them, but before we even had their annual planning, they came in person to a best practices seminar in Milwaukee. And the conversation came up about changing your hours. And it wasn't what the breakouts were intended for, but somehow we got on that topic. And they, as a group, all of their leaders, all 4 doctors, their amazing office manager, and their department heads got together and said, we want to do this. We don't want to work 7 to 5 or 7 to 6 some days. we don't want to do this. What can we do? And they decided 7 to 3 was too early for some of the working moms in the group. So 8 to 4 felt better. For 8 to 4, they felt like more of their team could be involved in those that had children could be more involved in getting ready for school and dropping them off, and then could work it out for, being home at 4 or slightly after. And they arrived at that conversation, at that decision. I had very little to do with it. I was really excited for them, but they involved their team. They understood the why. They had the photos of their family, and they were a little nervous that their patients were going to push back, those that wanted those 5, 6 o'clock appointments. But because the team was so passionate about the why, it came so much easier to explaining that shift in hours to the patients. And all of their patients were just like, oh, I totally get it. I can come in at 8 instead of 5. No problem.
Yeah.
Easy, because the team was on board.
Totally. Now, I know this team. They're one of my favorite teams of all time. And Courtney happens to coach them. So they do have an amazing coach. That helps. And I'll tell you, because if you're listening to this, first thing you're going to do is probably put some self-limiting beliefs. Well, it was probably a small practice. No, it's a very large practice. It's a very big physical space too. And you're probably thinking, well, it's probably this huge town. No, it's a tiny, teeny little town. Oh, and they were in network, but not anymore. So, like, you can't put these self-limiting beliefs to think, oh my gosh, we can't do this. This is one of those teams that once they got the why, they're like, let's do this. Now, they had doubts. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't know. People aren't going to go for this in our town. Our town is so small. Like, this isn't going to work. And it's amazing when you get a group of people. I always say this, and wouldn't you agree, Courtney? When you get a group of people that are the right people working together, there's nothing you can't do. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I just love that phrase, right people, right seats. It just makes sense. Even if you're not in our act dental world, which you totally should be if you're not, but even if you're not, right people in the right seats, it just makes perfect sense. If your team shares your passion and your values and your purpose, and now your why, you could do anything. There's nothing that you can't present to your team. Now, the catch here is listen to them. So take their thoughts, take their suggestions, listen to their, hesitations or frustrations, and respond accordingly. That same team that we just talked about, they before they were dropping their PPOs, their team was asking pretty loudly, "Pump the brakes. We're on board, but we're going a little too fast." And their leaders listened, and we dialed down. We did what was right for the team, and that made that transition so much better. So I really think part of it is about creating a space for your team where they feel safe, where they feel like they can share their thoughts, and where they feel like they'll be heard. Because if they're heard, they'll align even if they don't agree.
Right. Now, again, I'll just help the listeners. What Courtney said is so true, but you can't think in terms of, well, I'm going to do this in one big meeting. We like the idea of creating an operating system that has things like check-ins. So you've got regular intervals where you're getting this feedback consistently, not just one at a time in different directions. And you're creating a space where people feel vulnerable to tell you more and more and more because they start to trust you. Is there anything else you would add just about involving the team?
I think the more you ask your team those open-ended questions, what can I clarify? Where are we? I don't want to spoiler alert, but it definitely gives way into the third piece of our podcast for today. Just ask a lot of questions. Keep a good pulse on your team, on where they are. Lean into your check-ins. This is a great place to be checking in with your team individually to see what their hesitations are. Are you on board? What can I do to make this clear for you? The more questions you can ask, the better. No, if they do not weigh in to the decision at hand, they won't buy in. Yeah. No weigh in, no buy in.
Yeah, that's a phrase that I can't tell you how important that phrase is and how much of a lifelong learning experience it is to really even start to understand the weigh in, the buy in. It doesn't mean that they need to create the idea. It doesn't mean that they need to fully, totally agree with it. It does mean that along the way, they have to have voice, and you have to show them I'm listening, and you would be amazed by how much they want to help if they know you're just listening in this whole process. So, and then you also have to anticipate things that are going to happen. You have to anticipate some of those challenges. You're going to say with your leadership team, our team is going to ask us this. Now, I will tell you that when you have a great coach, the coach is going to tell you this is going to happen at the next meeting. This is going to happen in a month from now. This is going to happen in 2 months from now. So if you're not good at anticipating what those questions are going to be, get a coach. So now, Courtney, one of the things that we teach teams on this, and this one freaks me out, is the phrase, remember, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I don't still to this day love that phrase, but I believe... I don't, because I don't move slow with anything, but can you explain to our listeners, what does that really mean?
It means slow is smooth. We don't want to do anything for the sake of doing it. We want to do it right. So when you're talking about changing your hours, dropping PPOs, whatever your decisions, but bringing on a new, technology or a new team member or a new skill or a new anything, we want it to go flawlessly. So we're going to go slow. We're going to take our time. We're going to make sure the right systems are in place. We're going to make sure that we know the answers to 80%, that we're well-versed in the things that we want to say or explain. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. As a coach, we get a handful of clients every now and then. They want to go fast. This is not going fast enough for me. And I totally get it. And we're going to go at the pace that we set, because if we go any faster, mistakes are made, and probably careless ones that could have been avoided. So I love that phrase. I introduce that to every client. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah. Now, in full transparency, I don't, but I also know it's true. Now, let me help maybe another listener who is impatient at times. And here's how I've kind of gotten my brain around what Courtney just said. Mine is be consistent, extremely consistent in the micro and patient in the macro, which means like in the day, I'm going to be extremely consistent about where we're going in the future. And you'll be amazed. The slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. The more you're smooth and consistent in those moments, you look up and you go, wow, look how far we've come. Wow, look how far we've come. And so, and you do have to calm yourself and go, okay, quarter after quarter, this is getting better. This is getting better. This is getting better, because those 180-degree turns that I used to do, in which you thought you were benefiting everyone's life in the practice, those freak everybody out. People love to know what to expect at work. When they go, the crazy bald guy is actually pretty calm. It creates anxiety on other levels because they're like, he's not freaking out every week. No, be calm, be consistent. And you'll find, don't listen to me, listen to Courtney, but you're exactly right. You create this calmness in your organization, your practice, where people say, we set goals, they happen. And so that's where the slow is smooth and smooth is fast starts to take shape. Am I on the right track there, Courtney?
Yeah, totally. And when you want to, dial into your team, you introduce this big idea. Now you want to dial into your team and say, okay, where are we? We have another amazing tool from our fabulous coach, Jamie, called the Stages of Change. That's really helped us give something to our clients to say, point on this line, tell me where you are so that I can support you and encourage you, and so that I know what you need to get to that next step on the stages of change. Do you want to go into what those 5 stages are? I love it.
Yeah, because now I'm going to say this. When she showed us this tool, I got it right away. I'm like, oh my gosh, because as Courtney takes you through this as a leader or as a team member, you can see where you're on different stages of this change process. So take us through it, Courtney.
So there's 5 stages. The first one, it's always awareness. Okay, I'm aware. The idea has been presented to me. I understand it's here. I understand what its purpose is. You are simply aware. When you move up the ladder to the next level, now you're at understanding, where you get more of the why. You know its changes. You know what changes it will bring. You know what implications will come with it. You have more of an understanding. You've had kind of more time to sit and ask your questions and get a little bit more knowledge around it. The third stage is acceptance, where you've dug in, you've accepted that this change, whatever it may be, is going to happen. You're leaning into the facts that you know, the education, the knowledge that you have, and you've accepted that this is happening. We're dropping PPOs, we're changing our hours, whatever, we're buying a CIREC, whatever we're doing. I get it. I'm at that acceptance level. Then you go to commitment, where you're starting to really believe in this idea. You've seen that the team is rallying. You've seen the patients are rallying. You're committed to it. You believe in it. You're committed to the success of this idea. And that 4th stage gets you to advocacy, where you believe in it so much. You know that it works. You know it's the best idea. You'll stand on a soapbox with your megaphone and tell every person that you can about how amazing this idea is, to get others to start to grow on their stages of change with you. So introducing these 5 stages to our teams has really, really given us a way to ask our doctors and ask our team members, where are you? Point on this chart for me. Where are you? So I can support you.
Yeah. This tool is so important. If you want a copy of it, you can email us at info@actdental.com. I'll give you the exact tool we use, and you'll see all 5 stages of this in which Courtney mentioned. Now, here's what's cool. This is how you use it, because you might be thinking, well, I've told my team, they don't understand it, or they often don't hear it the first time. Then as you stay consistent with this, you're going to start to move up up the stages of change, and they're going to slowly follow you, but surely. And they'll say, on this stages of change continuum, you can say, I'm here. And you can also ask your team, where are you on here? And some of them are going to say, I still don't understand why we're doing all this. And so you can say, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. And back to what we said before, you just have to be patient enough And when you move consistently up this stages of change process from idea to action, you'll see people slowly will come with you until the point where they actually become advocates. And you can sit back and go, people always want like a team that just does it all and they're all motivated. Well, you as a leader have to be patient enough with these ideas and bring them along in this process that they can own it, they can buy into it, and they can truly commit to it and become advocates for it. So it's so cool. I love it. I can't say enough about it. What other thoughts do you have about this, Courtney?
I had two. One, it's not a judgment, right? If you ask your team, where are you? And they're still at awareness, that's okay. That's power for you as the leader to just know where they are. Because if you know where they are, then you can help them get to that next level. So it's really important that you if you share this tool with your team, tell them it's not a judgment. This is not a negative. I just need to know where you are. And it's okay if you're back at, the bottom step or that first step of awareness. And Jamie also shared with us that not everyone on every idea will get to advocacy, and that's okay. What's more important is that we grow as individuals on that stages of change ladder, and it's okay if we stay at acceptance or commitment. We're not meant to get to advocacy on every idea. That falls back into that alignment not equaling agreement concept.
Yeah, so well said. So I'll add a couple ideas to your ideas. She keeps mentioning Jamie's name. Yes, coaches have coaches. Like, coaches are so important to our mental health as leaders or as team members. Our coach comes here every quarter, and she just helps us establish energy for the next quarter. And she also pressure tests our strategy and make sure that we're on the right path. Now, one thing we didn't mention in this podcast is if you're an idea person like me, we're not saying don't do ideas. I'll tell you what I do. I have a little lab that no one's allowed to go to that has a retina scan and all this kind of stuff. And I often refer to it as like Q and James Bond. Like a lot of the things that I'm working on aren't going to work or half of them blow up. I have 20 ideas a day, but 18 of them are bad. So my goal is to play in the lab while my team stays consistent and I stay consistent quarterly with pulsing on what's important, and then I can bring the ideas that have been pressure tested, run through our integrator and our leadership team to a meeting and say, okay, this is what we've thought about this. We've worked it out. Here are some of the big whys around what we're going to do, and that becomes important. And then I'll just add one more layer to this so that hopefully this helps you. The bigger your organization gets, or the more people, or the more growth, the less you have to accomplish holistically. And let me explain. You only need 3 or 4 things every quarter that move the needle for your entire practice. I was the person that tried to do 92 things at one time all the time. And you realize, like, we only need to do 3 things this quarter as a team that move the needle. And then you pick the next 3 and the next 4. And by sticking to the process that Courtney's outlined, you can bring new ideas, you can get people to weigh in, and you can slowly take them up this stages of change process. It's awesome. Courtney, give us some final takeaways.
So just to recap, start with why. Tell your team why. Dive in. Get their buy-in. No weigh-in, no buy-in. Get their weigh-in, get their thoughts. And then check in with them. Ask them, where are you? How can I support you? The more connected you are to your team, the more successful your ideas and your practice will be, and the healthier your patients will be. So all these ideas, when you piece them together, you can have the best practice. You can have the best people. It takes a leader to get there. And these are just some steps in helping you become a really great leader.
Yeah, so well said. Courtney, this is like the important stuff, and I know it sounds a little heavy, but when you follow this process and fully understand that agreement and alignment are not the same thing, and you stay committed, you can create an incredible culture, and leadership is not about coming in and inspiring everybody every day. It's more about being consistent around the things that matter. You'll see its impact on your practice, the people, your patients, and you can just constantly improve. You don't need to be perfect. You just got to get a little bit better every quarter. and it changes your life. So it's good stuff. Courtney, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Oh, it's so much fun. So if you want the tool that we mentioned, you can email us at info@actdental.com. We also have a great tool that's called Creating New Agreements, Policies, and Systems for Your Practice that covers a lot of the same things. You can email us at info@actdental.com. Our goal is just to be helpful. I'm hoping that if you're listening this far into this particular podcast, this has helped you. So if you need more help, we are so happy to help you. And then if you just have tried everything and nothing is working, don't stay there. We have an amazing full-time therapist on our team. Her name is Gina, and you can reach out and learn more about ACT, and we're so happy to help you every step of the way. So, Courtney, stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else, but thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed today, do us a favor, hit the share button, share this with your friends, and keep showing up. Because if you keep showing up, we're going to keep bringing it to give you some great information to help you improve your practice and your life. So until you hear from us next time or you see from us, that doesn't even make any sense. Why did I just say it? Keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. Hope you guys enjoy your day.